So my name is Nancy, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how I use the quantified self to try and pursue mindfulness. And quantified self is more known for things like technology, so it doesn't seem like it naturally follows to study mindfulness there. I mean, I've walked around a lot with electrodes glued to my face and other weird things. But I think that mindfulness is actually at the center of self-tracking. So the concept, itself is actually pretty old. It's just regulating your attention to the moment and non-judgmentally observing, which of course seems very disparate from what we do in quantified self with all our graphs and data and technology. And mindfulness itself definitely wasn't on my radar when I started self-tracking. It was only after about a year of self-tracking that I thought about it. And actually a year of trying to self-track and failing miserably. Because I would get really excited about each new device, use it for a couple weeks, get to the top of the leaderboards, and then get stressed one day and never see that one again. So I had this whole trail of empty profiles, and actually only one good data stream from that whole year, which is my Wi-Fi connected scale. But this actually told me something interesting. I realized when looking at this data that each up and down in that data could be represented by an emotional state or something significant going on in my life, whether it was completing a big project at work, travel for manufacturing, or having a great holiday season, or moving, trying to find real estate in San Francisco. And it led me to this conclusion that I was tracking all this data, but really I was looking at all these symptoms, all this biometric data that I thought could make me happier and healthier, but really my health and my tracking habits were completely based on my emotional states. So this inspired my first mood tracking experiments, where I monitored negative emotions and all my biometric data, and I thought I could comb through the data somehow afterwards and find answers or something amazing. But during the experiment, I realized that data was becoming less and less important to me. I realized that by tracking my emotions, I was actually changing them significantly. I was becoming more stable, I would have fewer negative emotions, I was just happier all the time. But it turns out, I am not the first person to realize this. It's actually been around for a while. I was just experiencing the effects of mindfulness. Just by tracking my emotions, I had to be aware. I was constantly and curiously observing myself to see how I felt. And what I had found is the same as many studies. Being mindful makes you less stressed, you're happier. Studies have shown you actually get a boost in your immune system and lower blood pressure, all sorts of amazing things. Which, that's a great answer to find. I should be happy all the time now because I know what to do. But there's a catch, because being mindful is really hard. We live in a hectic world. We have super uncooperative brains, because they're always trying to latch onto stress or problems or something that will unwittingly make us almost sick with stress. And on the surface, technology doesn't seem to be helping here at all, because it's giving us all these portals and notifications, things that are trying to pull us into more stress, more distractions, things to take us away from a moment of thoughtful reflection. But it's not technology's fault. I mean, Robert Sapolsky saw the same problems in primates way before the orangutan iPad, so we can't pin the blame there. So it was facing this dilemma that I had that I turned back to quantified self to help me find answers. I wanted to know how to maintain mindfulness in the hectic world with the uncooperative brain. And quantified self seemed like a great place to start this, because at the core of quantified self is this idea of self-experimenting, which really uses this curiosity, openness, and acceptance to look at yourself and how you can change your life and improve it. And the other great thing that we do in QS is we take these signals that are hard to track, that we often miss, like how active we are, and we use technology to help us out with that. Technology to look at that for us and feed it back to our conscious brains so we can get more knowledge about ourselves and how we're doing. So self-tracking tools for mindfulness are already out there and they exist. For example, we have mood tracking apps, and in order to track your mood, you have to be mindful of it, like I found in my experiments. So they kind of naturally create mindfulness. And what I think is really cool is we actually have more sophisticated tools out there to do this. Things that look at your physiological measures and use that to tell you where your head is at when you're not paying attention to it. Like the M-Wave 2 uses heart rate variability data, which can tell you your basic stress levels and also guide you into a calmer, more meditative state. The Stanford Calming Technologies lab also has this cool breathing belt that you can wear, and it feeds back your breath rate, which kind of correlates to stress. And it shows you things like email apnea, where you stop breathing when you're checking your email because all the stress going on. So I thought this was really cool, and I wanted to extend my self-experimentation in that level, see what sort of technology I could latch onto myself to keep an eye on my emotional states and feed it back to my conscious brain so that I would kind of be kicked into being more mindful by technology, because apparently I can't handle it myself. So I was inspired by a talk by George Lawton, where he mentioned that our facial expressions often indicate our emotional states before we're really aware of it, which I thought was cool. So I'm a hardware engineer. I like to build things. So I built a little wearable sensor into a hat that monitors my facial muscles and would figure out when I was smiling. And I wanted it both to monitor that signal and then also amplify it so I'd be aware of it. And nothing says amplified happiness like strings of sparkling LEDs to me. So I made a nice wearable LED display to go with it, so that every time I smiled, there would be a fun new cascade of lights. Yay. So I wore this around for the past couple weeks, and what I've noticed is it actually makes me happier during the day in like fun microtransaction kind of ways. The biggest one is I wander around at work and do like little transactions with people, like asking for a tool or asking a question that are normally, very, very much transaction-based. I need this, I'm going to get it. But apparently I habitually smile when I do that, and I never noticed until when I did it, all of a sudden there were lights all over my face and over my body. And that kind of made me take this moment to experience joy at being around someone. And I thought this was cool because I've always wanted to be more like my dog. Like when they get so happy to see you, I thought that was amazing. And I actually realized with this device, it would remind me whenever I was interacting with someone to go ahead and take a moment to acknowledge and express that little moment of joy in greeting each other. Okay. So I'm working on expanding this a little bit, being able to pick up more emotions, different types of displays. And what I really want to do is explore my emotional states and find the best ways to feed them back to myself, so that I'm reminded to be mindful, that I'm kind of learning more about myself. I have more knowledge of how my emotions are working, and to guide me into a happier place and more emotional well-being. So, yeah.
Awesome. I mean, we've talked about this before. I want one of those things. I want to wear it.
I'm going to put all the schematics and code up online. I don't have it yet, but just ping me if you're interested.
So you talked about just the fact that wearing this thing brought awareness to what you were already doing, something that you wanted to do. And it seems like throughout what you were talking about, you had there's this latent idea that you were wanting to understand your emotions and your mood. Yeah. So what's the next thing you think you're going to be looking into? You briefly mentioned you're going to want to expand the kind of the smile necklace, smile hat. What are we calling that?
I haven't thought of a good name. If anyone has suggestions, just walk up to a microphone and yell it.
That's a terrible name. Never mind.
I like that one. I thought it was great. Yeah. So I started with smiles because I love the research around smiles and how, when you smile, it can bring happiness to other people, how it can actually trigger you to be happier. I thought it was a great place to start, to try and amplify. I am really interested in things like stress, just because, the reason I want something like this is I'm kind of a Silicon Valley stress junkie, so I have a lot of the bipolar stuff going on. I really like the difficult problems, but they also can make me sick or sleepless with all this stress. So I want to be able to track that and be a little more aware of that. I'm hoping for that to be my next one.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Questions from the audience? Microphones everywhere. We have a question in the back.
You realize you just created a high-tech version of the mood ring.
I fulfilled all my childhood dreams now.
Hopefully a little bit more objective. So, the natural thing that some people may take away from this is that you have this device now that's telling you when to smile. Now, is it telling you to smile? And who is doing the telling? Is it you telling the machine and the machine then telling back to you? Or is the machine telling you what to do now?
So, yeah, it's actually that's why I put in the display like this. There are some devices out there that will do things like if you're sitting down for too long, they'll start buzzing at you. And I think there are types of feedback like that. They are feedback, but they can be very negative. That's the last thing you want to hear when you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing and it starts to nag you. So that's why I went with the lights on this. It's triggered off of me, so I'm the source of what's happening, but I wanted to create something that would amplify and inspire that as well. Try and make more happiness from that. I did have a feature in there where if I didn't smile for too long, it would start to do some really crazy series of blinking lights with the hope that someone would notice and come up to me and say something funny or make fun of me or any sort of social engagement to.
And did that ever
snap me
happen?
out.
Did it ever go off? I know
It
you
did
because I don't
happen.
understand. I don't know when you haven't been smiling.
I smile a lot. It did happen a couple times at work, and it was usually during meetings, which is always a fun thing. And it would be a little bit distracting. I probably need to work on the display a little bit, but it would kind of lighten the mood, especially when you're having one of those really stressful meetings where everyone's getting a little crazy and over passionate and maybe in a negative way. It's a good way to kind of break the tension there.
Interesting. Other questions? Yes.
So I saw you, Nancy, at the QS conference, and it was just a delight to see you light up. But I also was wondering what your interaction was with other people, because I found when I talked to you, I became more mindful because I was seeing you light up, so I needed to pay attention to myself. So I'm wondering what experience you've had with others.
So I've been wearing it in a lot of different situations, and I have found that one thing I notice is it makes my interactions with people very engaging. A lot of the times when you talk to people, you're kind of on autopilot and kind of paying attention, but this definitely creates a lot of energy and a lot of presence in the interactions, which I really like. I've also done some things like wear it around the streets of Soma, kind of near the Tenderloin in San Francisco, and it definitely creates some fun interactions that you wouldn't normally have, just people on the streets just suddenly lighting up or laughing or saying hello, and it's a nice way to engage with people. It can be exhausting. I was wearing it at the Quantified Self conference. I didn't wear it here today, and having lots of people around and all that very intense interactions completely wore me out. But yeah.
I was wondering, I had to notice that the first Ignite speaker, Katie, probably wouldn't benefit from your hat. She couldn't wear that, and that's too bad. And in your slides, you show a nice Buddhist monk in his robes. Are you practicing meditation? Smiles are wonderful, and it's something that I've taken on myself, smiling at myself in the mirror and making conscious smiling a part of my day-to-day mindfulness. But what about meditation and some of the more traditional? And the second question was, did it help with your self-tracking?
Okay, so to the first one, one of the reasons I built this is I've been trying meditation and traditional mindfulness, and oh my God, it's so hard for me. I hate it. Every time I meditate, I get a migraine, which is apparently natural when you start. But it's something that I've been working on, and one of the reasons I built this is I find it so difficult to go through these traditional channels. When I find something too hard for me, I want to build a robot to do it for me. So, yeah, it is something I'm very much looking into and still studying and exploring a lot. Because I think there's so much knowledge and wisdom in these traditions that have built up over such a long period of time. So I'm just trying to find ways to make it easier to access that and more present in everyday moments. Sorry, what was the second question again?
If it helped you with your Fitbit.
Oh, no, actually, it's kind of replaced the other self-tracking. So I've used pretty much every tool out there for about a week or two at a time, but the more I delve into parts of tracking that interest me more, the more I realize that I just wasn't learning anything from those particular devices. I feel like with self-tracking, you have to come at it with a question or a goal, and as strict observation to see what happens, it's not too compelling. It's hard to adhere to something when you don't have this drive or particular thing that you're trying to answer. So right now when there's more devices for things like heart rate variability, I'll probably go back to it, but the basic pedometers, energy expenditure, I still haven't gotten back into.
Have you heard about NeuroSky, the brainwave monitor?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
I just thought that the neuroscientists are taking it to the Buddhist monks and tracking them, which I think is going to yield some interesting results, but it might fit very well in your hat.
Actually, yeah, I was looking at using one of those headsets for it to begin with. And there are some amazing applications of that right now, both looking at meditation or things like in Japan, they have ones that little ears. When you pay attention, they perk up, and then when you're not paying attention, they lay back down. So. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, this has been a great one to end on. Let's thank all of our speakers, and I think we have a little bit of time for a break, and then that's it for today. Yeah. Thanks.